Jackson's church, Jackson Laymeyer's church. So,
What church?
Sheridan Christian? I'm not sure. I think that's the name of it. We're going to be looking at Numbers 9 and 10. Last week and this week, those chapters are pretty small. Repetitive things are in it, so we're going to kind of go through 2 chapters tonight. This is keeping the Passover in the cloud by day and the fire by night, chapter 9. And the Lord spake to Moses, unto Moses, in the wilderness of Sinai, in the 1st month of the 2nd year, after they come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed season. In the 14th day of this month, at even, ye shall keep it in his appointed season. According to all the rites of it, according to the ceremonies thereof, shall ye keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the 1st month at even in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So did the children of Israel. So it's a year to the day that they celebrated Passover before. Okay? It's been the time they've been traveling. It took them a month or 2 to get across. They went across the Sea of Reeds, and then they traversed to Mount Sinai. Took them about a whole month to get all the way over to that side. And they sat there for this long. Now they sat there in this process of, and we can go back and look at it again. And I don't remember, I have to go back exactly and see what the timing was. But they were getting the materials together for the tabernacle. He went up to the mountain, spent 40 days on the mountain, got that back. The children of Israel was having their hay, and the golden calf was built and all that, so he had to go back up, spend another 40 days, get the seasons again. So all this time has happened. It's going back and forth. This is what was going on kind of in between time. But he wanted them, God wanted them to keep the Passover again. Now, if you go back to Exodus, it tells us when they first set up the Passover, it says they were to keep it throughout their generations. But then a little later in Exodus, it says you'll do this again when you get into Canaan. Well, they were getting ready to go into Canaan. We'll see that here in chapter 10 when we'll go in there. They're getting ready to move. But up to this time, they haven't. So he wanted them to celebrate it again as a reminder. And then the way I understood it from the commentators, they didn't celebrate it again because they was wandering around the wilderness for 40 years. Until they got into Canaan did they again start the Passover service. But it says the tabernacle was finished on the 1st day of the 1st month of the 2nd year after they've been out. On this day the cloud of glory covered the tabernacle, and about this time the tribal leaders brought their gifts. So that's the 1st. Now it says you will need to keep the Passover on the 14th. 2 weeks later, tells them that they're going to keep the Passover. It says this long stay at the base of Mount Sinai was not a time of inactivity or indolence. It was a time of great activity and celebration of the goodness and mercy of the Lord in preparation for what was expected to have been the soon triumphal march into the land of Canaan. We studied about they were taking the census. They took the Levites. They got everybody up in groups and clans and families, set up the way that they were, instead of just a hodgepodge of people, they set up all the tribes in the different ways and the tabernacle in the middle to take care of it and all these different things around it. So it even though to us, just reading through it, in a few verses, it took them a long while to do all this stuff. They had to make all the utensils, the furnishings for the tabernacle. They had to do all these things. Now it says, according to all its rites and ceremonies, you shall keep it. Now it didn't go through exactly. They knew they could go back and look and remember what they did. It's been a year ago. They ate bitter herbs. They had a lamb. They They had to bring the lamb in, keep it for a week, I think it was, or 2 weeks, I don't remember exactly. Have the lamb slaughtered, put the blood up on the posts, and then they had to eat the eat the lamb, and have it all gone by the next morning. And in that time, the angel went across all of Egypt and passed over. Now, there were some additional things that they told them to do they didn't need to do here. You need to put your shoes on, you need to put your coat on, you need to put your walking staff on, because they were ready to go, to leave. God knew that Pharaoh would not allow them, would allow them to leave. He was going to kick them out, basically, after this. That's not happening here. So they didn't have to do that particular portion of it. But they still had to eat the unleavened bread, eat the Passover lamb, all these things to remember what was going on. So it says the children of Israel did all this, okay? During that 14-day, on the 14th day they did it. Well, some problems arose, okay? Verse 6 through 14, Brother Everson.
And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man, whereof are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of the Lord in his appointed season among the children of Israel. And Moses said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you, of your posterity, shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. The 14th day of the second month, at eve they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And they shall leave none of it unto the morning, or break any bone of it. According to all the ordinance of the Passover, they were to keep it. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same so shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, he will keep the Passover unto the Lord according to the ordinances of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. He shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land.
Okay. So it doesn't give us the particulars of why these men came in contact or in vicinity of a body, a dead body, but they did. And when they did that, they became unclean, and they were supposed to offer sacrifice and go through all this process. It takes 7 days to go through it to get cleansed. And they were saying, okay, we can't keep it because you said, you've got 2 rules here, okay? You got to do it this day, and then you tell us you can't do it because of this. What's up? And so Moses, he hadn't thought of that, evidently at the time. He said, I don't know, let's take it to the Lord. Let's go to the Lord and see what he says. So the Lord said, okay, I understand what you're doing. I understand that happens sometimes. So what you'll do is 1 month later, instead of the first month, the 14th of the first month, the 14th of the second month. By that time, you'll have been cleansed. You'll have offered offerings, done all the time that you are supposed to do, and then you'll be clean, and you can go through that. Okay, you can go through the process. So that meant not just those men. It was the men, but it was their families too. The families could have done it without them, but I don't think they would, because it was that family connection. When God told them, get a lamb. If your family's small, go with your neighbor. If you can't afford a lamb, go with your neighbor and your nephew. So I kind of think that's what happened, that these men and their families had to go through this. Now, one of the commentaries suggests that there was two individuals that were killed, if you remember, from Aaron's family, because they offered profane fire. They said that may have been those two that were dead, and these guys had to bury them. So, could be. We don't know. It's not given to us. That came kind of through a historical Jewish account, I guess it was, maybe. But anyway, and for whatever reason, they come in contact with it. We go through that particular portion, and we remember as a Nazarite, they couldn't even go to their mom and dad's funeral because they'd be too close to a dead body, become unclean. All these things, a dead body to them represented sin. Okay? That was the result of sin, is death. Because God created Adam and Eve, and if they hadn't participated or took of the fruit, they could have lived forever. Is the common thinking that they could have lived forever if they would have kept up that, fellowship with God. But they broke that when they wanted to see more than what God not wanted them to see, but told them they shouldn't. Satan convinced them. Anyway, it says these men wanted to keep the Passover, and actually this ordinance that it gives says if you're not on a journey, and if you're not anything else taken up, like a dead body keeps you from having it, and you don't participate in the Passover, they're going to kick you out. Because that's part of being this heritage as the Israelites. Even so much that if somebody comes in, a foreigner, and they want to join up and become part of this religion, it's not religion, but offer, themselves to God, then they need to do this. Now, one thing they did need to do before that, if they were male, they had to get circumcised. And that was part of it. It's not mentioned here, but they would have to already do that. But if they were in the congregation with the people, then they had to do just like the other. It says that goes back to not a respecter of persons. Okay, God wants you, if He gives a rule to somebody to follow, He wants everybody to follow it. He don't want just certain people to follow it. And it says later on, it quotes in in 2 Chronicles, during the reign of Hezekiah, there was an application of this second month alternative that occurred again, that is recorded. So they saw that happened, and they knew that it was there, that they could use that if something come up. Now, the Passover for us is a type and shadow of the Lord's Supper. Okay? And if you go and read in John 6 and 53 and 56, as it says down there, that's when He was, during the Last Supper, He was offering, He said, this is blood of my blood, this wine is going to be blood of my blood, and the flesh is that you're going to eat, the bread is going to be my body, represent my body, and that's the way that we're to keep the Passover today. Okay, that was given, Jesus gave us a new Passover for us. Okay. It says one thing in the middle of page 5, Rabbi Gamaliel, which was the teacher of Saul, is quoted as saying that if anyone does not eat the lamb, the unleavened bread, the bitter herbs, he has not kept the Passover. So they have to do this particular. Now, whether they were in tents at that time, whether they went and put the blood on the entrance of the tent, I don't know. It doesn't really tell us that. Charles Spurgeon suggests 3 points. Spiritually speaking, we are to feed upon Jesus Christ. We are to feed upon the whole of Christ, all His person, all His offices, all His teachings, all His warnings and commands, and His work. Then we receive Christ in a community, in union with others. And that's why I go back to the family type. that this was to be done on the family. Those men did. Verse 15, Iris, you want to read it?
And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony, and even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning.
Okay. Remember when they first set up the tabernacle, God moved in his presence. That cloud that was following them between the Egyptians, fire by night, and a cloud by day, then it moved in after they got the tabernacle set up and everything set. It came in and it hovered over the area of the Ark of the Covenant. What we would call the Ark, the tabernacle, right over the tabernacle, and it's a place that it was right over the Ark. That's what they said. So when it was first raised up, it goes back. See, it's kind of jumping back and forth time-wise. It's telling us now, back on the first day of the month when they get everything set up, this is what happened. The cloud covered the tabernacle. And this cloud is, in other places, it's called the Shekinah glory. It says, when Solomon built the temple, the cloud of glory filled the temple. When Israel had completely turned away from God in Ezekiel, and the temple was destroyed by Babylonians, the cloud departed. So this is very much leading on, just like we're seeing what's happening here. It's going to continue on until the temple was destroyed. So from the evening or morning, it was above the tabernacle. Had clouds by day to cover them, keep them cool. They're in the desert. And by night, gave them fire so they could see protection. 16 through 23, if you want to read for us, Ruby. Down to page 6.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Always. A cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed. And in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord, they pitched as long as the cloud above the tabernacle. They rested in their tents. When the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of the Lord, they abode in their tents. According to the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. And so it was when the cloud abode from eve until morning. And that cloud was taken up in the morning. Then they journeyed, whether it's by day or by night, the cloud was taken up. They journeyed, or whether it were 2 days or a month or a year that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining there on. The children of Israel tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining there. The children of Israel abode in their tents, and journeyed not, but when it was taken up, they journeyed. As a commandment of the Lord, they rested in the tents. As the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord. At the commandment of the Lord, by the hand of Moses.
Okay. So is early GPS.
I know if God gave Moses the order.
No, he didn't necessarily give Moses the order. Cloud would just start rising up.
Okay.
And whoever saw it first, they suggest here a little later on, there was people set around the tabernacle, probably some of the Levites, just to watch the cloud.
Oh.
Three or four, priests around it, all watching it day and night. Because it said, whenever it start taking up, it's time to go.
Wake up, go.
Yeah, it's waking up. So, and until we see this later on, it continues for the 40 years, as best we know. It doesn't say that it didn't, you know, it led them everywhere. Now, it doesn't tell us everywhere that they went. We have maps that says, well, they went this way and they went that way, and we know for 40 years they journeyed around. But in this particular case, when we're just getting started, it's kind of in between the stories of they're just getting started. It's telling us this is how we knew to go. Now, it didn't necessarily mean that they followed that place, but as we'll see in the next chapter, sometimes the road may have been over here, so they would camp where it would be better. They still followed that area because the tent was going to be in the middle of the congregation. Okay.
But it's, I can just picture like, they travel all through the desert, but it makes it sound like they travel the whole world,
Well, they traveled a long ways, and for 2.5 million people, they traveled a long, I don't know how many miles they traveled. It's not that far from Egypt to Canaan. I mean, relatively compared to how many miles they traveled. And part of that is their own problem, their own responsibility, because they didn't go in and do what God told them to do. So it was whenever it rested, and I'm not sure exactly how it came, if it came down to where it was right on top of the tabernacle or just in the whole cloud was around it. But somehow they could tell the difference. When the cloud would start going up, then they know it's getting ready to move, or the fire, or whichever part was. So it sums this up that the cloud hovering over the tabernacle provided the perfect means of divine guidance. The people had to respond with perfect obedience. Like I said, whether it's day, night, or whatever. God chose this to keep the people dependent upon himself and submissive to his decision of his will. That he would not give them regular times of marching or resting. They were to do both when and where God saw best. God was preparing them, and things are going on over in the land that the people don't know of yet. God's seeing that. He knows what's going on, and he said, you need to rest here for a while. Somebody else will come in there and bash these people. You don't have to do all the hard work type thing. It's the way I see it. Okay? Let's jump on to chapter 10. 2 silver trumpets and the departure from Sinai. Bertha, you want to read 1 and 2?
Sure. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, make thee 2 trumpets of silver, and the whole piece shall thou make them, that thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journey of the camps.
Okay. You got 2.5 million people spread out over a lot of acres. I can't remember, I said that one time, it seemed like it was several hundred acres that it would take, the people would occupy. So it would be hard for them to communicate. You can hear a trumpet, if you want to say it that way, or hear a music sound a long ways away.
Yeah.
Especially they're in the hills and out in the desert, so they can hear that.
Echoes.
They only made 2. How many sons did Aaron have now? He only had 2. So we're thinking maybe these were those 2. The 2 sons of Aaron was the ones that produced this sound. Now later on, we'll get down a little bit later here. I think it's in David. He has more made, up to 120 trumpets made. And then there's also shofars, which are ram's horns that they use also. But God told them in this particular time just to use this. Said the silver trumpets are distinct from the ram's horn or the shofar. that was used to announce the Day of Atonement. These silver trumpets were going to be used for something special. The trumpets are described by Josephus and pictured on the Arch of Titus in Rome. They were straight pipes about 18 inches long and had a flared open. They didn't have any holes or anything to make any different sounds. The only different sound you could make is blowing it and blowing it long, blowing it short, making different notes like that. It says, you shall make it for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps. So this is the way they're going to communicate to the people. And then a little later on, it'll tell us too, for any alarms or anything that comes up. Okay, 3 through 10. And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to thee at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And if they blow but one trumpet, then the princes, the leaders, which are heads of the thousands of Israel, shall gather themselves unto thee. When you blow an alarm, the camps that lie on the east part shall go forward. When you blow an alarm the second time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall take their journey. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys. But when the congregation is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but ye shall not sound an alarm. And the sons of Aaron, the priests, shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance forever throughout your generations. And if ye go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresseth you, then ye shall blow an alarm with the trumpets. And ye shall be remembered before the Lord your God, and ye shall be saved from your enemies. Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. So they had to have different types of sounds. I mean, not sounds, but something to differentiate between them. They had one trumpet. If two trumpets, everybody would come. One trumpet sounding, only the leaders came. So whether that was just a short blast or a long blast or whatever, that's what they did. Then they had to have a different sound, not sound, but a different type. It's kind of like Morse code.
Yeah.
They may have had a long blast and a short blast and a long blast to signify something. They may have had all these different things. We really don't know what they had, but it said that they had different sounds or different blasts for the different times, different things that he had to go on. So this would easily transfer. Just two trumpets, you could put one blowing one way and one blowing the other, and everybody could hear those trumpets. Okay? And even though they made them the same, two different people blowing two different trumpets, you're still going to be able to tell a difference if it's one or two.
Listening for tones in a band.
Kind of.
I used to play a cornet, and so that's why I understand what you're saying.
It's but these are just straight trumpets as far as no changing of the notes.
No,
But it's just changing of the vibration and everything, like you said, when they blow them. Somehow they had to set about this, and I'm sure they had to learn it. It was something that they learned, and they told all the princes, and the princes, leaders of the tribes, they told them, and they pushed them on down to the people. So when all these works. The next page, page 3, said there was a value in a variety of trumpets and tones. The trumpet requires effort in making a sound. The sound should be made clear. The sound should be loud enough to be heard. If the sound continued too long, it became just mere noise. You know, the other day I was out. We don't hear, we're out in the country a little bit, we don't hear the Wednesday 12 o'clock noon tornado alert a lot because it's, we're way out. But I was driving down Owasso, down 86th Street the other day at noon on Wednesday. That thing started up and scared the living daylights out because it was right next to it, it was right there. I bet you did. And
But I didn't know you lived so far out you couldn't hear it.
if you go outside, you can hear it. If you're in the house, you can't hear it. So we don't, ever go outside just to hear it.
But I was thinking, in the military, remember, they had a trumpet, a little different, but charge, they knew when to charge.
Bugle, they had a bugle.
Yeah, they knew when to reveille.
That's right, that's right.
I mean, it's the same horn, but it different.
It plays different messages, tells them different things. Retreat, go forward, all these different things. They had that because they didn't have walkie-talkies back then. This was their communications. The sound gathers the people of God. The sound leads the people of God forward. The trumpets were to get the attention of the people. The people were to respond to the sounds of the trumpets. The trumpets were to instruct and guide the people, and the trumpets sometimes just called the leaders. The sound tells the people of good news. The sound leads the people of God into battle. The trumpet was to sound an alarm, then you shall sound an alarm with the trumpets. The sound comes from an instrument shaped by hammering. This wasn't poured or anything like that. They hammered it to make it. The sounds also heard by God himself. The sound was made by someone called, cleansed, sanctified, and anointed. Okay, that's different too. The two priests, Aaron's sons. The sound had a special significance to the people of God. The sound proclaimed the work of atoning sacrifice. The sound celebrated peace with God and right relationship with him. And the trumpets only worked effectively with the evidences of God's presence. The trumpets told them to start marching, but the pillar of cloud or pillar of fire showed them where to go. Okay, 11 and 13, Brother Everson.
And it came to pass on the 20th day of the second month, in the second year, that the cloud was taken up from off the tabernacle of the testimony. And the children of Israel took journeys out of the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran. And their first took journey according to the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses.
Okay. Now I looked up several maps. I've given you maps before. You will go back and look at some of them, but they were the one place that a lot of people think Sinai was down in the bottom part of that peninsula, the triangle-shaped peninsula. Some other people think it's elsewhere, but it was around that portion. Well, they moved up north to where, the seas were like this and it makes a triangular peninsula. Well, they moved up to this way. This is the wilderness of Paran. This is the wilderness of Sinai. And they moved up here. It tells them it's like a 3-day journey. Now, it may have been that they didn't walk solid 3 days. We don't know that. We'll get into a little bit here more. I think it tells us a little bit more about it. But this is where it raised up and they were ready to go. They had to have all this ready before this time. So they got the everything ready for the people. Then they told them to do the Passover. Then God was ready to move. Said this is the initial departure from Sinai, and they were positioned to continue into Canaan. The desert of Paran is a large plateau in the northeastern Sinai, south of what we would later be called the Negev of Judah, and west of Arabah. This forms the southernmost portion of the promised land. The presumed staging area for the assault on the land itself, or on the land of Canaan. So he was moving them up, get him ready to go into Canaan. So they came a long ways. It's been a year. This is the first time that they've marched after God's given them the order to align themselves in groups. They become ordered and organized in Numbers 1 through 4. They become cleansed and purified in Numbers 5. They have become set apart and blessed in Numbers 6. They learned how to give and how to function as priests, Numbers 3, 7, and 8. They were to remember the judgment spirit and deliverance, we just read about the Passover, 9. And they had God's presence as a guide and the tools needed to lead the people. So that's both 9 and 10. It says, Israel on the move from the desert of Sinai was on a journey that in a few weeks could lead them into the conquest of the land of Canaan. This was not a day to be forgotten. At last, the Israelites were on their way to Canaan. Said one would be tempted to think that after such extensive preparation and virtual transformation from slave people to a promised land people, the actual entering into the promised land would be easy. This was not the case. The preparation was exactly that, preparation. Ahead of them were the greatest challenges. Challenges could only be met by faith. To use an example, a soldier might think basic training finishes something, but it doesn't. It only prepares for a greater challenge, the actual battle itself. I know you're probably glad basic training's over, but now you got to go do the real stuff. Okay, I'm going to read the next one since it's almost a page of stuff. In the first place went the standard of the camp of the children of Judah, according to their armies, and over his host was Nashon, the son of Abinadab. We're going to go through each one of these tribes, okay? So here again, it's a lot of repetition. And over the host of, and the standard is the flag, okay? They set the standard up. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Issachar was Nathaniel, the son of Zuar. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Zebulun was Eli, the son of Helion. And the tabernacle was taken down. Okay, so these three that's on the east, they start moving. The sound goes off and they start moving. At the same time, the Levites start taking down the tabernacle. The group's moving. Of course, it's a huge group, so it's going to take a while for them to, the ones that's right up against the Levites to take off. But they start tearing down the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was taken down, and the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari set forward, bearing the tabernacle. So they tear it all down, put it on their wagons, start carrying it. And the standard of the camp of Reuben, the one south, set forward according to their armies. And over his host was Eleazar, the son of Shedor. And the host of the tribe of the children of Simeon was Shelumiel, the son of Zurishaddai. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Gad was Eliasaph, the son of Duel. And then, it says, the Kohathites set forward, bearing the sanctuary, and the other did set up the tabernacle against they came. So Kohathites, then they're the ones moving the furniture. So you got these guys moving out, and then you got the tent going stuff forward, but the middle, right where the tabernacle, the furnishings and everything's kind of right in the middle of all the 12 tribes. So it's well protected, okay, that's going to be taken care of. And the standard of the camp of the children of Ephraim, they're back on the west side, set forward according to their armies. And over his host was Elishama, the son of Amahud. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Manasseh was Gamaliel, the son of Pedazur. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Benjamin was Abidan, the son of Gideoni. And the standard of the camp of the children of Dan set forward, which was the rearward of all the camps throughout the earth. The other ones were the north ones. So now it's the ones in the back. And over his host was Ahizar, son of Ammishaddai. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Asher was Pagiel, the son of Ochran. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Naphtali was Ahira, the son of Enan. Thus were the journeys of the children of Israel according to their armies when they set forward. Now before, remember, it said when they went forward, they blasted one long blast. They knew it was going on. Whatever the tone was, they knew, okay, that's time for these guys to move. Then it said they blast again. That's time for the second guys, the south guys, to move. Then they blast again. It doesn't say this, but They said this is what was
It
said.
had to be
The
organized.
third time, yeah.
Regiment.
The third time, the north guys, they started moving out. And then finally, the fourth blast, then the guys are following up. So they had it all set up. It's huge. It's like that. I mean, it's an army. That's what it is.
It's a regiment.
Now, these were the army people, the Sir people. The families that was all part of this, they may be in with that tribe. I don't know. It didn't really say, but they had to break it up. The warrior men, they were the ones in there, so I'm sure they were probably in with their groups. But they had to go and get ready, so they broke down their houses and everything. As soon as it blast, they knew they were going to be moving out. So maybe they told them ahead of time, we're moving, and then the first blast is the first company to move out. Okay, Numbers 29 through 32, Iris.
And Moses said unto Hobab, the son of Raguel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, we are journeying into the place of which the Lord said, I will give it you. Come thou with us, and we will do thee good, for the Lord hath spoken good concerning Israel. And he said unto him, I will not go, but I will depart to mine own land and to mine kindred. And he said, leave us not, I pray thee, for as much as thou knowest how we are to encamp in the wilderness, and thou mayest be to us instead of eyes. And it shall be, if thou go with us, yea, it shall be, that what goodness the Lord shall do unto us, the same we will do unto thee.
Okay. So Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, has got three names. He's got Jethro, we saw in one place. He's got Reuel, R-E-U-E-L, I think it was, in another place, and now it's Raguel, or Raguel. So whatever it is, Hobab was his son, and he was still there. Now his dad may have already left, but he left his son there with Moses, his brother-in-law, that's there helping them. And he told them that we're getting ready, you guys are getting ready to leave, we're going to go back to our place. And Moses said he didn't really want that. He wanted them to go with them. One reason, the Lord will protect them, just like they protected, themselves. And the Midianites, they became part of Israel, as far as many of them became worshipers of God. But he kind of had to play upon his senses a little bit and told him, because he ruled this area, this land, he'd gone back and forth on it, this Hobab had, he knew where the good places were to go. So even though the cloud and the fire would lead them and guide them, he wanted somebody to say, okay, yeah, we're stuck here, but right over there's a bunch of water. We can go over there and get it for our crew. So right over there's a little hidden place that has a lot of fruit trees that we could get. So he needed some help with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Moses did this on his own, and he said that will help both you and will help with me. And God will treat you well for this. It says, here's on the middle of page 8, the father of Hobab was Reuel, also known as Jethro, and some early scholars took the use of the two names, Jethro and Reuel, as an indication that Exodus 2:18 and 3:11 were from different Pentateuchal sources, but the use of dual names in the Bible and ancient Near East texts has been demonstrated by Gordon and others to be a common practice in poetic and prose contexts. In the book, if you go down to the bottom, in the book of Judges, we find traces of the presence of Hobab's descendants as incorporated among the people of Israel. One of them came to be somebody. The Jael who struck the tent peg through the temples of the sleeping Caesarea, For she is called the wife of Heber the Kenite. Probably then, in some sense, Hobab must have become a worshiper of Jehovah, cast in his lot with his brother-in-law and his people. I said Midianite, it's Kenite. Okay? 33 through 36. Ruby, top of page 9 there.
And they departed from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey. And the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. And the cloud of the Lord was upon them by day. And then they went out of the camp. And it came to pass when the ark set forward that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, unto many thousands of Israel.
This is kind of a blessing or a saying that Moses had, that when they would move like that, you've heard that phrase probably, rise up and let thy enemies be scattered. David uses that. Other places in the Bible uses that. And then when it rested, then bring the blessings back upon. Return, O Lord, into the thousands of Israel. So it was something that Moses was, again, being part of it as they moved. It was being, I guess, a blessing upon them, that they're following after what God had said. Said the 3 days' journey was how far it was to Haran. This kind of phraseology was commonly used in the Near East to indicate the distance traveled by armies. Said typically an army would travel about 15 miles per day. Let that sink in. Can you walk 15 miles? They had a whole bunch of people that walked 15 miles a day. So they traveled about 45 miles to this wilderness of Haran. Said this prayer is also, Charles Spurgeon noted, in Jesus' victory. Okay, sin was defeated and scattered at the cross. The hosts of hell were defeated and scattered at the cross. Death itself was defeated and scattered at the cross. The gods of the heathen were defeated and scattered at the cross. So it's, here again, a type and shadow of what was to come. The commanders must pray as well as lead on their forces, as did Charles the Great and that late brave king of Sweden, more addict to prayer than to fight. That's really the way the kings of Israel should have been. They should have wanted to pray more instead of fight. There are several more in there if you want to read them from different commentators. Appreciate everybody coming out.